Alrighty, welcome to episode 303 of Backpacking America. I'm your host, Anthony Barone, and today we're going to be talking about hunting. It is an activity of mine that I absolutely love. It's been involved in my family for about 50 years, and I'm lucky enough to have a family that included me in that tradition, so I'm really grateful. And I've also discovered my own types of traditions with hunting outside of our typical deer adventures where I go duck hunting as well. And I gotta tell you, I want to talk about this because it's a very controversial, I would say, I don't want to demean it and call it a sport. I'm going to say way of life, because unfortunately, a lot of society today in our country views hunting as cruelty or redundant because there's a grocery store 5 minutes away. But what a lot of people don't understand is two things really. The first is hunting allows you to have a backup in case you can't afford food 1 month. It allows you to have cleaner options for food, so you're avoiding that processed junk that you would get at the store, because there's a huge problem with trying to find, poultry and beef and pork that is not processed, that is not pumped full of antibiotics and steroids. So it's very difficult to find clean food. So you have to go get that clean food. So if you're really, if you have dietary restrictions where it's hard for you to digest processed foods and foods with steroids in them and antibiotics, then hunting would be, meaning game meat, would be your best bet for attaining that healthier lifestyle. The other benefit of it is it's at times cheaper. If you harvest a deer or 2 or 3 deers in a hunting season, you have anywhere between 50 to 150 meals ready to go. And all you got to do is just defrost them and throw them on the grill or in the oven or in the crock pot. I love making venison stew. So, it saves you a lot of money in the long run, and it also gives you a leaner, cleaner option. I myself have borderline high cholesterol, so having access to game meat actually allows me to live a healthier quality of life and put me at a lesser risk of having a stroke or a heart attack. It's also high in protein too. I think, one venison steak is like 90 grams of protein or something insane like that. So that's one reason I like it. The other reason is, it's actually less cruel than buying it from the store. And let me explain. So if you've ever seen the videos of factory farming and how animals are processed, they're bred to die. So they're raised in captivity in like these cages that are about maybe an inch wider than the animal itself, so they have like an inch of space, and then they're fed all of this slop. Sometimes a hole is cut into their stomach, so they're fed directly into the stomach to fatten them as quick as possible, and then they're killed by shooting a nail into their head, and then they're harvested that way. So they're fed with this harmful crap. They're stuffed to the gills. So that means there's a lot of fat on these animals, and not that fat is bad, but excess fats that aren't developed naturally are going to increase your risk of developing high cholesterol, which leads to heart attack and stroke. It's also harder to digest fatty foods. So you're going to have, the likelihood of having more ulcers, developing GERD, having gastrointestinal issues, colon cancer, colon ulcers, that type of deal. Anal bleeding, because you're eating more fat than naturally can be put on by animals. So we're artificially filling it with fats, as well as other chemicals too that's put in the corn and in the grass, because you're going to use anti-parasitics or what's that stuff called they put on, not preservatives, pesticides. You're putting pesticides on corn and on grass that you're feeding to the cows. So even if the cows aren't heavily chemicalized with their food, with other types of interventions, it's still going to be, you're giving them something grown with pesticides. So it's going to be very tough to eat clean when you go to the grocery store. On top of that, they're living in absolute slavery and misery until they're brutally killed. With hunting, it's more of a, it's more natural. There's a fairer chance for the hunter and the hunted. There's a chance you're not going to see anything for weeks. You know, there's a chance you can get injured and get attacked by another animal, which, you know, no one wants to happen, but it's fairer in the sense that the wildlife has a chance at you, just like you have a chance at the wildlife. And there's more respect for the wildlife because you're directly involved in harvesting that animal. So when I shoot a deer or a duck, it's very, you have respect for the animal because you don't want it to suffer. You want to make sure you get, you know, the right shot, and you want to track the animal if you wound it because you don't want it to die and get eaten by coyotes and ripped apart while it can't even move. So, and then there's also the desire not to waste the meat when you eat it. So, you know, a lot of people, they'll throw out a plate when they're done, or they won't save leftovers, or maybe they'll take leftovers and they'll have it for the next day. But like most of the time when you eat game meat, you can't really make it into a leftover unless it's a stew or it's a, unless it's a stew or you make it into a stew, you can't have, you have to finish your plate. So it teaches you more respect for the animal, because it's not like you could just go to the store or wait for your paycheck to clear and then you get more food. It's not that anyone really wastes food, but it gives you more of a respect for, I killed this animal, I saw this animal die, I butchered this animal. I'm going to eat this animal and I'm not going to throw it away or let it go to waste. You know, I'm going to have this on a night when I know I can really enjoy the meat and enjoy the meal, and, you know, make sure that this animal didn't die in vain. And I think in a way, and to some people, they'll think that that's brutal or psychopathic, but in a way, it's, if you eat meat anyway, you're still, the only difference between someone that abhors hunting yet eats meat and someone that enjoys hunting and eats meat is the people that don't hunt and eat meat and don't like hunting. They don't want to see the damage that they're contributing to, and want to pretend they're morally superior. If you're looking at a pound of beef, you know, at the grocery store and you buy that, but you're going to slash some guy's tires because he is hunting in the Pine Barrens or whatever, you're actually contributing to something worse, because you're contributing to the industrial mass slaughter and torture of animals. Whereas the guy that's hunting for his food he's earning that food. It's the most primeval, right? Primeval, ancient art that one can do, which is to hunt and gather your own food. And instead of just going to a store and purchasing it. And there's nothing wrong with buying food from a store, but it's the same concept. You're still killing animals at the end of the day and contributing to the killing of animals if you purchase that product. And some people think it's gross, and that's fine. You know, trust me, I don't fantasize about digging into a deer and gutting it. It's not a fun, you know, neither is killing something. But really, like, the joy of hunting comes from being out in nature, being able to have alone time with yourself or time with your friends and family that you go with, and sharing a collective experience. And there's just something about sitting outside with a cup of coffee, your backpack, and a rifle in complete silence, just looking at the beautiful nature that's available to you. I mean, and of course, getting something and bringing something home to eat, that's always like the number one thing. That's always the, you know, what everyone wants. But most of it is the experience of being able to be out in nature, have time to think to yourself, to read, you know, to just enjoy the peace and the quiet. And I think and I also make this because I've been unfairly judged in the past, where people will say, oh, like, that's so gross, or you must like killing people if you like killing animals. And it's like, no one likes killing animals. And no, I'm not into killing people, because that's insane. But it's also an insane, because people think that, like, if you go hunting, you enjoy killing things, and they equate it with like young children like killing a cat or enjoying like torturing insects, and they link the two together as a definitive version of being a psychopath. And you're not a psychopath if you enjoy going hunting. You're a psychopath if you enjoy killing animals just to kill them and torturing them. That's when you're like crazy. There's people that do go hunting that just go for trophies, or they just go to kill animals. I saw a very disturbing, I guess, video on YouTube the other day where there's this guy in Australia, and he's a hunter and a gun guy. Cool. So I'm looking at it, and this guy is shooting camels, and you can go camel hunting in Australia, and they're seen as an invasive species. This guy is treating it like Call of Duty and just slaughtering these animals and being degrading to them before he shoots them in the head to finish the animal off, and then goes on to the next one. And it's just like, there's just no respect for the life you just took. And I'm sure the guy isn't eating it. You can probably eat camel. There's got to be something you can do with camel. You can probably eat camel. And this guy obviously isn't eating camel. He's just running and gunning multiples of camels and leaving them for dead. And because that's a lot of work to just take 12 or 13 camels and butcher. It's a lot of work to take one deer. Can you imagine 12? You know, so it was just so unnecessary and so cruel. Like, that's psychopathic. Like, that's something that is completely against the antithesis of hunting. It's a waste of life. It's a waste of resources. And it's incredibly disrespectful to the life that you had the ability to just look at and ponder upon. That's psychopathy. So there's a difference between people that are hunting for sustenance and for the enjoyment of being in the outdoors, and then people that are just killing animals because they genuinely enjoy killing things and torturing things. Those are two completely different things, and people often get them confused, because a lot of guys, when they do talk about hunting, they get excited. Or sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, we like to fuck around with liberals. I mean, there's just something great about making a very pampered and isolated individual upset. And it's fun. But at a deeper level, at a real, like, face-to-face level, like, most of us don't enjoy killing things. It's just more the action of being outside and the action of being able to harvest something that you've earned through your toils in the woods or on the shores, if you're talking about duck hunting. It's also like, it's really weird too, because 30 or 40 years ago, hunting was very common. Maybe not on Long Island, but like in general, hunting was more of a common thing. Kids used to go to school with rifles in their truck racks, and, you know, they'd go before or after school, and kids used to get off for opening day. And now it's seen as a taboo thing, and not a lot of young people like myself go hunting anymore, and it's seen as a novelty. And some people think it's really cool, some people don't, and they're abhorred by it. It's just something that I really think should be made more commonplace, because it teaches valuable skills, survival skills especially, because you learn compassal directions, you learn how to navigate terrain, you know, how to navigate with landmarks. It's physically demanding. You have to drag your game to and from, your gear to and from. It teaches discipline. You have to be up early. You have to leave at certain times. You have to make sure you're packed accordingly for your environment. You know, are you wearing the right amount of clothes to protect you from the elements? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough? That's my favorite part about it, honestly, is walking through the hunting area with my gear. That's like my favorite part. And also being with, you know, friends and family too. Those are like those are really the two reasons I go the most. I don't even really care if I get something half the time. I think when I went duck hunting last season and I saw, like, I think I got like 3 ducks, and I didn't even care. I was just like, this is great. So many stories and adventures. I mean, you know, one time one time me and a friend, we shot at a goose, and unfortunately you have to use steel shot in the United States if you're going to be doing, is it the United States? No, you have to use steel shot. No, it's federal. Yeah, you have to use steel shot to shoot waterfowl and geese, and it's not strong enough to kill these geese. And we had to unfortunately shoot this bird 9 times, and the goose was still alive, and it was still swimming away like nothing happened. Its wing was just all bent out. So we went literally on a wild goose chase to find it. We drove all the way to the other end of town and we saw it, but by the time we saw it, it was in a private marina, and we obviously can't get it if it's in a private marina. So, you know, we hope that it rehabilitated itself and was able to fly away instead of get eaten by a raccoon. That's one of the reasons I'm also against steel shot, is because steel shot is a very weak round. I only recommend, if you're going to use steel shot, I recommend reloading your own. Factory loads don't do it. I like to reload my own ammunition because it's often stronger and it's able to, like with steel, it's lighter. So you actually have to, instead of lead shot, so you actually have to like load it with more gunpowder to make it hotter. So that way it actually shoots with a force hard enough to knock the bird out of the sky, and hopefully to minimize its suffering. And it's a very, that's another reason I like it too. And that goes into the skill set as well for hunting, where it's a, like I'm learning how to reload my own ammunition. That's a skill that's lost. Not a lot of people reload ammunition at my age, especially. It's more people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, some older and even older, that reload their own ammo. So it teaches you all these valuable skills. It also teaches you teamwork, camaraderie. It teaches you anatomy. You get to learn the anatomy of the animal that you've harvested, and respect for wildlife. So, you know, don't litter because the animal could choke on it. Identifying babies, identifying mid-range and mid-aged animals, older animals, you know, taking animals that are older as opposed to younger, so that way the younger ones have time to grow and breed and develop the species more, because you don't want to clear out an area either. And then off season, there's conservation efforts that a lot of hunters volunteer and create their own organizations to lead, or they work with the Department of Environmental Conservation to help clean up and preserve these areas where these species inhabit. So that way they can protect the species, so that way it can grow well into the next season. So that way we can harvest it and get proper nutrition from it, but also so that way they can be plentiful and multiply and then take care of the ecological needs of the environment where we're harvesting. So it's a multifaceted effort. And it's also great because hunting's also great because it's pest control. A lot of deer, especially with deer, unfortunately, a lot of them are a nuisance and a danger to people, especially when you're driving on the highways, or if you're in farm country, they eat your crops. So it's seen as pest control and population control. So we are allowed to give ourselves nutrients and sustenance through harvesting during the hunting season. And we're also keeping the population at a manageable level where it's not going to cause injury or death to a driver or economic devastation to a farmer. And which is why it's also like really important to be educated about hunting. And if you're going to be against hunting, like be against it for reasons other than, oh, I feel bad that the animal's getting killed. And like, is there an ecological reason why hunting is not good? Is there a safety reason why it's not good? I don't know, but something other than, oh, it makes me feel like shit that you're hunting animals. And again, it's one thing, like maybe be against poaching, maybe be against trophy hunting, because I understand, like, you know, some people, what they'll do is they'll go hunting, they'll just shoot a buck, they'll cut its head off, mount the head, and leave the rest of the body to rot in the woods. That's fucked up. That's disgusting. And that's psychopathic to me, because you just killed this animal, cut its head off, and then put it on a wall to display to everyone. Like, you're not even going to eat it, you know? Like, I remember once, perfect example, my dad shot a bear, and, you know, obviously we eat everything we take. So we got a bunch of bear steak, and we begrudgingly ate the bear steak because after the first one, we were like, wow, this is actually disgusting. This is a gross, we don't like eating bear. And we just said, okay, if we see a bear, we're just not taking it, because it's a pain in the ass to gut, and it's just, we don't like the meat. But we finished it. But we're not going to kill something that we don't enjoy the harvest from. Like, there's no point in harvesting something we're not going to enjoy. So, but some people, they'll just shoot a bear, lop its head off, and leave the carcass in the woods. Or they'll taxiderm the whole thing and throw the meat out. And that's just a shame to me, to just do something like that. It's like the people that, they'll also just like shoot squirrels, like just for the fuck of it, and not eat the squirrel. Like, it's just like, there's no need to do that. And, like I said, people like that give hunting a bad name. And also, like, the people that are assholes about hunting and give us a bad name, where they, like, listen, we've all done it where we intentionally piss off the liberals. I get it. But if you're going to do it where it's like your entire, like, half the fun of hunting to you is pissing off liberals, then you're just making it a bad, you're giving us all a bad representation for what we do as hunters. Because there's a lot of good that comes out of hunting, and there's a lot of great skills. And I think it's great for, kids and young adults and people, and they're well into adulthood to do. It's great for any age because it keeps you active. It keeps you motivated. It's something that gets you outside. I mean, I'm outside probably from middle of October, just preparing for the season, to, I'd say, the first week of February. And then after that, it's the springtime. So then I'm outside at the beach. I'm doing some fishing. I'm doing just laying in the sand, going out doing summer, spring activities, so it's like a full year being able to be outside and enjoy all weathers. And that's why I think it's great, because that's another thing too. Like, people don't go outside as much anymore, and there's so much to learn outside of your house, believe it or not, especially interacting with nature and seeing how you and nature fit in together. I remember once, it was my junior hunt actually, and we had these 3 bears come towards us, and me and my dad were just like shitting a brick because we didn't know what to do. It was like, he knew what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was like, do I shoot the bears? And he's like, no, those are cubs. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? They're like really close to us, at like maybe 6 inches away. And he said, just stay really still, because if you shoot them, the mama bear is going to come back, and the mama bear is not going to be happy, and she's going to fucking kill us. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So we just stayed there for about 5 minutes, didn't move a fucking muscle, and they ended up going away. And then we ran as fast as we could out of there. And it's just like, that's such a cool experience, especially because we lived. But like, it's such a cool experience because it's like, you're interacting with nature, be it positive, negative, or neutral. It's like you're in a world that is not controlled on a day-to-day by society. It's just very like, you're interacting with something you don't understand or know, and you're at peace with it. Whatever happens, happens, because you're just out there. It's just so strange too, because like, I'll spend like, when I go upstate to go deer hunting, it's like I spend 3 or 4 days just up there in the woods. And then you come back to society, and it's just like, oh shit, wow, this is like, things are very, anything can happen in the real world, but it's just like, it's just so different to see how like much more rigidified it is. And it's like, oh, this is human society. But like when you're up in the mountains, it's like you're so far removed from it that it's like, you feel like your own entity. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just a really unique experience. It's the same thing with duck hunting too, which is, on Long Island, we go duck hunting, and, the land is like 10 minutes away, but you're isolated, you're alone, and you feel like you're in a different country. Like you're just living in your little bed of reeds with your stool and your buddy next to you. And it's just you, your buddy, and the ducks. And that's it. That's the only thing that matters. You know, it's like all the other problems and responsibilities of the day don't exist until it's time to pack up and head back to the car. And then that's when you realize it's like, oh shit, I have to do so much work today and I didn't get to do shit. But that's the great part about it. You know, so I think, you know, I hope that, you know, after listening to this, if you're on the fence about hunting or you don't like it, that maybe like you've been swayed a little bit to think like, hey, you know, maybe it's not all bad. It's not like these bloodthirsty maniacs that like to just shoot animals and torture them. It's people that actually care about the environment, love the experience, love the gear, love the quality time with friends and family, and really enjoy just being in peace. And if they get to sustain themselves in the process and sustain their families in the process with the harvest, so be it. It's much better and much more humane than the factory farms that we find out in the Midwest that torture chickens, cows, and pigs and provide us sub-quality slop that's going to increase our risk of stroke and heart attack. Hopefully Bobby Kennedy fixes that sooner rather than later. I'm praying for January 6th to happen and get everyone sworn in, because we need to fix the health of this country. Other than that, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Backpacking America, and until next time.